In this video, I'll be changing the automatic transmission fluid in my 2012 Nissan Pathfinder. To do this, I'm using a torque wrench, a socket set with a 10mm socket, and a 19mm socket, which is for the drain pan. I have 10 1-liter bottles of automatic transmission fluid, which is Nissan Matic S. I found that you need 4 per drain and fill. I've got a couple drip pans, I only need 1, a couple of funnels, a jug for the old fluid, some paper towel, and a new crush washer. Now before I drain the automatic transmission fluid, I'm going to take my 10mm socket and my funnel and ensure that they fit in the filler tube. Because the last thing you want to do is drain the automatic transmission fluid and find out that your funnel is too large. So you can see the dipstick is located right here on the passenger side, and there is a 10mm bolt that is securing it in place. This bolt's very easy to remove as long as you have the 10mm socket, and obviously I'm just using a screwdriver type attachment for this. One thing to note, when I was looking to purchase this vehicle, I found a lot of these Nissan Pathfinders actually had this bolt missing. So if you're shopping around for one, I would check on that and make sure that that's not lost. Once you have the bolt off, just pull the dipstick out and put your funnel into the filler tube and make sure that it fits properly. If it doesn't, you can either buy a new funnel or get yourself some tubing to figure out a way to do it. The automatic transmission fluid pan is located right between the passenger and driver seats and is fairly accessible. All you need is your 19mm socket to free the drain plug. So the fluid's supposed to be bright pink. As you can see, it's quite dirty coming out of here. Now I figured there'd be more fluid coming out of the transmission than I ended up getting, so I do switch the drip pans midway through, but I found this is not necessary. In total, I get about 3.5 liters each time I do the drain and fill. So you can see I got the new crush washer. It just goes on the drain plug. Now I found the transmission fluid drips for an extremely long time, so you might want to call it quits at some point and put the drain plug back in. For the reinstallation, I'm going to be using a torque wrench, and the torque specification I have from my service manual is 26 foot-pounds. And once the drain plug is torqued to specifications, I like to just take a piece of paper towel or shop towel and just clean up around the drain plug so that I can notice if there's any leaks. Alright, now I'm going to measure how much fluid I actually got out of the transmission. And this first time I do the drain and fill, I get approximately 3 liters of transmission fluid out of the system. So not even 1 full jug. My recommendation, if you're going to do a drain and fill just one time on this vehicle, I would get 4 liters of the Matic S ATF fluid. If you're going to do it twice, I found that 7 liters was enough. So now that I've determined the approximate amount that came out, I'm going to fill it back up with the same amount. And just a point of interest, it is usually recommended to pour off the other side of the bottle, but as long as you don't spill, it doesn't really matter. Now with the 3 liters of fluid put back in, I'm going to reinstall the dipstick and reinstall the dipstick retaining bolt. I'm going to start the vehicle and bring it up to about 2,000 RPMs for a few seconds before moving through the gears. So slowly I'll work my way through each of the gears, reverse, neutral, drive, and then back to park, and I'm going to do this a second time as well. Now the reason you're doing this is to ensure that the transmission fluid is picked up out of the transmission fluid pan and circulated throughout the transmission and the torque converter. When you go to check the fluid levels, you want to get an accurate reading. So for the Nissan Pathfinder, you need to leave the vehicle running when you check the level of the transmission fluid. So with the vehicle running, I'm just going to look underneath it, make sure there's no leaks from the transmission fluid drain plug. And it appears that there are not. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the dipstick retaining bolt and the dipstick again. And as mentioned, with the vehicle running, check the level of the fluid. Now there's a hot and a cold level with markings on each side of the dipstick. I had previously driven this vehicle prior to doing the transmission fluid change. However, it was not particularly hot at that time. So the fluid should still be at the cold level. And in this case, it is at the upper level of cold on the dipstick. So this is the first change I do on this vehicle. I don't show the entirety of the second change, but I will show you the fluid that comes out the second time I do it. So there's approximately 5 days between changing the fluid for the second time, so I wanted to make sure there was a good circulation of the new fluid within the transmission. And here's the fluid I got out the second time. You can see it's still very dark, and the second time I got a little bit more fluid out, so approximately 3 liters the first time, and the second time I got 3.6 liters of fluid. And as mentioned, you can see it's quite dark and black in color next to the new fluid, and that's even after the first change. So I'm quite happy that I did do the second transmission fluid change. More fluid came out the second time. So when I refilled the transmission, and I don't show this in the video, I did put 3.6 liters of fluid back in. I was also a little bit more meticulous in how I refilled the transmission. So this time I drove for about 15 minutes after putting 3 liters of transmission fluid in, and then I slowly, with the vehicle running, added a little bit more transmission fluid each time until I was at the upper level of the hot indicator on the dipstick. So the bottles of Nissan Matic S cost me $18 each. So if you just want to do one drain and flush and you're living in Canada, that would be $72 Canadian. If you want to do it twice, like I did, you're going to need 7 liters of Nissan Matic S, which would cost approximately $126. Now when I called the dealership to find out what they charged to do this, they quoted me at $300 before tax. So your savings by doing this yourself, if you do 2 drain and fills, is approximately $200. Doing the drain and fill is actually pretty quick. It does take a little bit of time to get the level correct because again, you do have to take it for a drive and ensure it's hot. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.